Hello, everybody. We will get started in just a second as we are welcoming in our friends and colleagues. I hope you all have had a wonderful week this week. It's been a little crazy, but we are powering through and we are at the end of the school year. So that is great, right? Everybody survived all the things. All right. So as we get started today, Tiffany is jumping on right now as well. Let's talk about some few housekeeping rules, okay? So we will be holding questions until the end of today's presentation, and at that time I will address your questions. Your PD credit information will also be shared with the very last slide of today's presentation. So if you've ever seen me present before, you know I like to be very interactive and ask lots of questions while presenting. I did send out an email about a half an hour ago with a copy of today's slides in there. So feel free to follow along. You will also get an email that shares those slides with you after today's presentation as well. So let's get started. So before we get going too far, I do want to mention that Family Matters is not a legal service agency, and we cannot provide legal advice or representation of any kind. Okay, so information I shared with you today, I might mention Section 504, IDEA, or specific Illinois school code, but that does not represent or be a substitution for any type of legal advice. We are partially funded from the U.S. Department of Education. However, I don't want you to consider an endorsement from the federal government for our program. So as you're jumping on, I'm going to introduce myself first, and Tiffany will go after me, but you are also welcome to introduce yourself in the chat. So if I see everybody saying hello, I see lots of familiar faces, which is wonderful. But if you could say, hi, my name's Abby, I'm a parent, or hi, my name's Tiffany, I'm an educator. We would love to get that feedback from you so we kind of know more about our audience. So feel free to do that. Let me change this setting real fast. Today's session is being recorded, so you will have access to that after the presentation as well. So my name is Abby Mars. I'm a transition facilitator and a Charting the Life course ambassador here at Family Matters Parent Training and Information Center. Family Matters is the PTIC that serves the state of Illinois, so we do lots of work in transition. Tiffany and I do. I am a mom of 4 kiddos. My youngest officially started his senior year today. So he's a senior. That seems unreal for sure, but I've been a part of special education my entire life. I'm a student that qualified for a 504 plan in school, and then all of my children have had some type of supports in school. So very familiar with the special education world. I've been at Family Matters for quite a few years, and I love my role as a transition facilitator. So Tiffany, do you want to introduce yourself real fast?
Hello, my name is Tiffany Stepney. I'm a transition facilitator in Charting the Life course ambassador as well, and I'm also an educational support coach. I have 13 plus years experience as a regular and special educator, and also I have an adult daughter with autism. So I have both lived and professional experience in this area, and I love what I do. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So we're going to get started. The reason that we're all here tonight, I'm super excited about this portion of our training and our series because this is where a lot of families, this is where a lot of educators have really big aha moments. We like to say aha moments of the Charting the Life course framework that we use, but the aha moments of, oh my gosh, I really see how this can flow together, right? So I love when we do this presentation and you guys can kind of see a little bit more about how all these agencies can connect and help support a student. I am really bad about going off script. I will be totally honest. Okay. I don't use notes frequently, but if I need to refer back, I'll check. But I'm really excited to get started with this one. So some training objectives today, we're going to understand the Illinois transition planning requirements, identify some key community agencies and adult service providers, learn how those collaborations improve student and family outcomes, and explore strategies for more family engagement during the transition planning process. So we're also going to talk a lot about Jordan today. So Transition planning matters because first and foremost, it's a requirement, right? So we are required in the state of Illinois to start transition planning for a student it's age 14 and a half. But all of us as educators know transition planning actually starts a lot sooner than that. Like we're gathering data about our student, families are sharing information about our students, and we are learning about them and their preferences and how they learn so that when they get to the 14 and a half slot, we got a pretty good idea of what to put in that plan. Now, transition plans in the state of Illinois have to be student centered. They have to have a student voice. There must be interagency collaboration and a plan of action. So we take transition planning very serious in the state of Illinois, and I'm very proud of that. Transition planning matters so there's not too much of a gap between student service or entitlement services to eligibility services. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. There's lots of challenges that happen for any person after they leave high school, but for students with a disability, they struggle to learn cause and effect, and they struggle to learn different aspects of being an adult, and because they've struggled to learn other things in their past. That's why they have the support of an IEP. So it's important to start that planning early, and knowing about key interagency workings are wonderful. As a transition specialist, as a teacher, as a parent, it's great to know more about those transition planning and the interagency connections that we can have. So again, I see I'm doing this all the time. I'm horrible about skipping slides. They must start at age 14 and a half, be student-centered, include some measurable post-secondary goals. That must include transition services and coordinated activities, and that interagency collaboration is key in the state of Illinois. So just for fun, I want you guys in the chat to put one other agency that you've seen at your IEP meetings before when you're planning for your transition. So if you're a parent, what's another agency that's been there besides the school? If you are a professional, what's another agency that's been at the IEP team? So if you could pop that in the chat, I'd love to sneak peek. GRS, Center for Independent Living, RAMP. Yes, these are all great ones. Great, 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 great. All right, CDS, wonderful. Okay. I just love seeing some same faces in here at each of these trainings. Makes me feel good. All right. So I like to really focus on really helping us as professionals, as parents, and the students see that we're all coming to this table with different wants in mind. So as professionals, we're coming to this table, this transition planning, with certain goals in mind. And that's IDEA compliance, right? That we have to be compliant with federal code and state code, that we have measurable goals, and that we document everything, that we have a trail of path of success, right? That's our goal as professionals. As a parent, my focus is on planning for future adult services, safety and future support for my kid, and long-term independence. But my student, he just wants a normal high school experience. He wants to have friends and belong. He wants to do community activities. He wants to have a job. They probably want a girlfriend or boyfriend. Like they want normal, I hate that word, but they want typical high school experience, where the rest of us are really focusing heavily on compliance and future support. That is one reason that students don't engage with their transition planning. Okay. They just want to be like everybody else. And I don't know another true statement about high school. Thinking back to my high school days, I just wanted to be like everybody else. And I wasn't, you know? So that is the focus your student has. The parents are worried sick about what happens in this next chapter of their life. They need to know about those future services. They need to know about more supports. And we're trying to worry about IDEA compliance, measurable goals, making sure our kids have good outcomes, inventing new processes. That's what we're worried about. So I think it's important that we see these meetings through each of those looking glasses. So we're seeing it from the kiddo's perspective, the parent, and the professional. So we're getting ready to have a big shift or a cliff that we're coming up on. So right now we're in the eligibility. we're in the entitlement. We're on top of the cliff of entitlement. When we're with the school system or entitlement, we're protected under IDEA. So our services are guaranteed. It was the school's job to identify that your student needed support through Child Find, and it's the school's job to continue to provide that support, follow up, do the pushing, do all the things for the student to be in compliance with federal code. But when our student crosses the bridge into adult services, then they only are eligible for services. And I know this is really confusing because at one point they had to become eligible for an IEP. I get all those things. But once they're eligible for that IEP, it's our job as professionals to make sure we're checking all the boxes and doing all the things. Once they cross that bridge into adulthood, it is then the student's job to make sure that they're eligible and doing all the things. And that's really hard for anybody to navigate, let alone a person with a disability. So then the adult system world, services must be applied for. They're not automatic. Individuals or families must seek out the services and know exactly what all services are available to them. Supports are coordinated across agencies frequently, but we have to get started somewhere. They're more of a functional or adult life focused area instead of educational focused. And wait lists are very long, and eligibility criteria provides for almost every service that they have. So we're going from I get this because I'm entitled to it to I have to be eligible for it. And that is a huge shift to go to. So Tiffany mentioned today she really liked my my illustration that I've come up with here. If you guys have seen me present before, I talk a lot about the cliff, the transition cliff. So you can see our student here, Jordan. He is walking along out of school, has his backpack on, and he is working towards that eligibility system right there. But Jordan's about to fall off. He's about to fall right down that cliff. There's a huge gap there because until this moment, everybody has made sure that Jordan's gotten everything that he needed. Everybody has done their job. He's set up to go to the next, and Jordan's about to fall off. Our transition planning is the bridge that Jordan needs to get across, or the parachute that Jordan needs so he doesn't fall too quickly. So it took me a long time through AI to make this. But yes, this is a very good representation of exactly what's getting ready to happen to Jordan. Now, Jordan is a kid. He's 17 years old. He doesn't really realize how deep that cliff is. What's not shown here is mom behind Jordan, completely panicking. He's about to fall off the cliff. And the teachers that have supported Jordan for the last 4 years are also panicking because he's about to fall off that cliff. So I think this is a great way to put it into perspective to say, yes, I see exactly what's getting ready to happen to Jordan. So what is interagency collaboration? Well, it's where we as a team, and I want us really to focus on a team. It's not one person's job. It's not the special education coordinator, the transition teacher. It's the whole team's job to know what agencies are out there to help support our individuals and how we can connect to all of them. Okay, so it's a team effort. It's not just one person's job. It's schools, it's adult service agency, community organization, families, employers, recreational and other community partners working together to make sure the student has a successful life. If the student did not have a disability, through learned consequence, he would eventually find these resources in his community. So if he didn't have a disability and wasn't making enough money to pay for his rent, he would eventually find a way to pay for his rent, maybe through a government agency or finding a better job. But for our students with disabilities, that learning of the consequence is very altered. It's very different. I'm not saying it's not there, but it takes a lot longer to get there. So we can't let them fall off in that cliff and hit the bottom. We have to give them supports to get them started. Like I said, this is Jordan. We're going to be talking a lot about Jordan today. He's 17 years old and has autism and anxiety. He wants a job involving animals. Okay, so he's not super specific. He said things about being a vet before. He said things about wanting to work in a circus before. But through some talking and assessments with Jordan, we found out his true passion is wanting to work with animals somehow. He struggles with his communication and he also struggles with transportation. So two big factors there. His family is really worried about adult services. So, Jordan needs a certain level of support. And when school is taken out of the equation, they're not sure how they're going to get him that level of support. The school, of course, is focused on graduation requirements and making sure they are checking the boxes with federal code. And I want to emphasize this, they're very worried about Jordan's success. They want him to be successful and happy, because we all know when students are engaged and happy, their transition plan is executed better, right? We want to do the right thing for Jordan. We want to give him the right things, but we don't know where to get started. So we're going to talk a lot about Jordan today. So let's talk about our first key community partner, and that is the Illinois Department of Human Services, specifically the Division of Rehabilitation Services. So they provide pre-EST services or employment transition services. So they can help students that are job seeking, okay? And they can help any student that is job seeking that will qualify or become eligible for their program. To qualify and become eligible for their program, you really just have to make an appointment and sit down to see if you're eligible. There's lots of factors that go in there. So they can help a student with job exploration and counseling. So in Jordan's case, they could sit down with Jordan and say, I want to work with animals, and they can kind of dig through and see what's available to work with animals and what kind of requirements you could have. So this brings a whole nother person in there to help that team. Okay, so the team gets a little bit bigger. They can also help with work-based learning opportunities, counseling for post-secondary education, workplace readiness training, and self-advocacy instruction. But it's important, students can be referred while they're still in high school. So this is not something they have to wait until they graduate for. Now, DRS has three separate fundings. One is for home-based services. So when you live independently as an adult, you can get some support for home-based, maybe someone to help you manage your budget, take you grocery shopping, help you clean your house. So that's one portion that they're home-based services. They have the pre-employment program, like we're talking about with Jordan here, where they can help him get set up with a job, provide a job coach if necessary, maybe even help buy Jordan work goggles he might need for his job. And then they have the post-secondary program that helps with college-based programs. That particular one, you do have to have a diploma for. So you have to be done with high school in order to do the educational based, but they actually have three separate programs. Fun fact I just learned recently, your DRS counselor, so Jordan's DRS counselor, may not be the same counselor that does his home base, and it may not be the same counselor that does his education. So there's actually three separate programs there. So again, that's a hurdle that a family may face. You know, maybe they've called DRS before, and DRS has said, well, we can't help you. He's not graduated high school yet. So they delay getting started, and then guess what? Jordan misses out on the chance to have a high school job like everybody else does. So it is kind of hard sometimes to really know exactly what to ask for. So we're going to show you some tricks in that as well. So you'll notice with your PowerPoint that comes after today's presentation, I have hyperlinked resources in each one of these slides. So I want to talk a little bit about job centers, work centers, and just a little bit about WIOA, or the Workforce Initiative and Opportunity Act. So job centers are usually based within your county seat, or if you're in a bigger metropolitan area, there's probably several throughout your community, but they're a great place to look for work. Okay, so if you've got a student in mind that really wants a job like Jordan working with animals, it's a great place to get started, to check out the Job Center board, or to make a classroom visit to your local job center. And there, the students are going to learn about that there's people there that can help them be matched with a job. Now, I'm not talking about a temp service. This is actually a job center agency. Temp services aren't a bad thing either. This is what I'm using as an example. Now, in my hometown, my job service center also holds my county's WIOA grant. So Workforce Initiative is a program, a federal program that helps students with pre-employment as well. So just like DRS, they can help them find a job, and they can also help pay a portion of their salary. So it is all dependent upon your county and how much money comes into your county for WIOA. The link that I've provided here will help you narrow down who holds the WIOA grant for your county. So I am not going to promise any services for your county from WIOA, but if you are a student or have a student looking for a job this summer, it doesn't hurt to reach out to say, what can WIOA do for me, or what can my job board, my local job center, do for me? So there's a lot of programs that are there to help with that pre-employment or that customized employment or carved employment. So it's definitely worth looking into. I'm a big believer that every single person in our society has a place to be there, and every single person in our society should have joy from their life and give joy back. So, if that means a person that has higher support needs really wants to work and wants to do a certain job, there's a way we can make that happen for them. Okay. So, it might not look traditional. It might look way different than what we thought it was going to be, and it might not meet their expectations exactly the way they had envisioned, but there's a way for them to give back to their community. And as a parent of a high support needs individual, very medically fragile, has a lot of issues, he works and he enjoys his job and he enjoys giving back to his community. I'm very proud of that. But it took us a long time and it took us a lot of interagency working to get to where we are. So it's not easy to accomplish. But what we did that I think is very important is we didn't fit him inside a box. Okay. We just kept exploring. Our next one are our Centers for Independent Living. So these are wonderful examples of how you can find out what resources are within your county for yourself or your students. So Centers for Independent Living can do exactly what they say, help learn independent living skills. So some centers offer like a cooking class or a budgeting class. Maybe they help to do taxes, can connect you with other community resources like transportation, or they can connect you to WIOA. There's lots of examples there. There's sometimes peer monitoring or self-advocacy support groups. They also offer housing supports or navigation, and like I said, transition and transportation resources. So, for example, Jordan learned more about self-advocacy and public transportation after he connected with his Center for Independent Living. So that helped him overcome one of those barriers to independent living and employment, like we talked about before. So independent service coordination is a different type of agency. Now, like we talked about before, your student is now going to have to become eligible for services, not entitled to. So an independent service coordination center might not fit the needs of your student. They might not be eligible for this. So typically, these are for adults with developmental or intellectual disabilities or complex medical needs and autism. Okay, so this is not going to fit every student, but it doesn't hurt to reach out and try just to make sure, right? So with your service coordination, they can help to assist individuals with developmental disabilities to connect to next steps. So this is where when you're at those IEP meetings and someone shares information about PUNS with you, these are the people that are going to help you manage and get on that PUNS list and possibly one day get drawn for services. So it also works great with the family to help them understand next steps. So you absolutely, as a person with DD in the state of Illinois, cannot navigate next steps if you're not using your independent service coordination. And so it's a good idea that if you are a parent watching this and you have a student with DD or an educator, that you know who that independent service coordination is. Make connection at that agency for people that are going to work with your students, and really try to understand to your best of your ability how they work. Okay. Now the PUNS list it used to be used for something different. It's a little. It's a whole presentation in itself to explain to what the PUNS list is. But for students that will receive Medicaid waiver services, have a developmental disability, they have to get pulled from this list to receive funding, and they have to be put in certain criteria brackets, and then they can receive funding to do things like day programs, live in a type of group home or apartment integrated SILA. It also can help pay for transportation. There's lots of things that home-based service does pay for our individuals, but you have to be connected with that independent service coordination first. So make sure if you have a student that you feel like is going to meet this criteria, that you're not just sharing the PUNS pamphlet at your IEP meeting, but you're helping a family to understand what the ISC is going to do. So the link that I have sent here, if you open that and put your county, it'll tell you exactly who your ISC agency is. So every educator I work with has already mentioned PUNS to families, and they'll say, I don't know exactly what you need to do, but I know you got to get on the PUNS list. So that's a start. That's a great start that we've done there. But Jordan's in this case, so at Jordan's last IEP meeting, someone from his ISC came to the IEP meeting and was able to explain PUNS a little bit differently to the family than what they'd been explained before. And then Jordan learned about waiver support and how that might help his future after he was pulled from the list. So I do want to let you know that families don't often understand the adult DD system. My son's been a part of the adult DCU system for 3 years now, and I still don't fully understand it. I'm also a trained professional to understand it, and it's still really complicated. But there is a significant waiting list to get pulled for waiver services. So this is not something that's going to immediately happen the day they walk out of high school. Okay, typically individuals are pulled for service around age 24 or 25. There's an occasion that they're pulled earlier for that when the state has extra funding, but that's very rare. So again, it can't be a service that families expect to happen immediately after they graduate from high school. They need to be working with their ISC to explain their priority of need and what services they are expecting from Medicaid waiver programs. Okay. The ARC of Illinois is your agency to help explain this further. So they have great presentations on all sorts of different types of Medicaid waiver programs and what to do with funding. So this is a great resource for families. It's a great resource for educators too to know more about it. The ARC of Illinois also helps individuals with disabilities advocate for more supports that they need, whether that be on a state or federal level or even in their communities. So they help them with future planning, guardianship alternatives, and they have lots of training support. So Jordan's parents attended advocacy training to prepare for adulthood, and then they took their training about knowing their options for PUNs. So they knew once Jordan was pulled for services exactly what they could do with their money and how to set up next steps. So the ARC of Illinois is a great community partner to have that linkage with. There's many different divisions to the ARC. They all are wonderful, and they all add different types of support for families. So it's never hurts to take a peek at their website. It's a great website, and see exactly what they can offer your students. Adult provider agencies are your agencies that's going to take your home and community-based waiver funding, your Medicaid funding, and they're going to apply it to services for your individual. So typically they serve individuals with developmental disabilities or high support need autism or medical complexities, okay? Adult service providers are all over the state of Illinois, okay? So as an educator, as a community member, make sure you know where your nearest adult service provider agency is and exactly what they do. So they all do something a little bit different. But their purpose is to provide support to the community and different options. So they might have a supportive employment program. They might have a day service program. They may offer job coaching, and typically many of them offer different residential supports. I will say, as a parent that's navigated the system, those residential supports, those day program spots have long waiting lists. So it's a good idea to share more about adult providing agencies early on in the transition process. So we're talking age 1 or 2, or year 1 or 2. So if you have a student that you feel like is going to meet that criteria, that you're letting the parent know about that soon, maybe inviting them to an IEP meeting so they can start to future plan, because there is pretty long wait lists there. I have provided a list to the DHSDD provider search. It is a great list. It is broken down by county instead of agency names. So you can't exactly look for an agency right away. It's more of a county based. But if you live in Cook County and you want to know what providers are there for your students, you're going to have that at your fingertips. Okay. So keep in mind, smaller counties or more rural counties are going to have limited adult service providers. Individuals may have to travel a little bit to get there for services. Your bigger areas are going to have more. They all have different criteria for services. This is not a guaranteed thing. They have to apply, be eligible for funding, and then the provider has to accept them as a client. So again, it's not an entitlement thing. So as me, I didn't understand that part of the matrix world of funding. I just always assumed when my son was done with school, he would literally walk 2 blocks next, down the way, and there's the adult service provider, and we would be fine. And that's not the case. He had to be eligible for services. They had to accept him as a client, which they never did. And we had to look outside of our small community into a different provider. So it is a complex system, but it is also a system that your ISC, that independent service coordination I talked about before, can help you to navigate, as well as the ARC of Illinois. So all these agencies are interlinked together. Everybody's going to provide funding if you're eligible, and everybody's going to work together. There are several funding things that you can't have if you're using the other one, but there are also different ways it can support that bridge. So, for example, if your student is not going to get pulled for funding for a day program until they're, or a work program until they're 23, DRS might be able to fill that gap and provide some different type of work program, or more local funding, like from your 708 board, can do that. So, there's lots of different ways in which we built that bridge together, but we have to know what agencies are out there. So as a team, we're going to look into this, and we're going to find out what providers are in your region. And often adult service providers love to work with local high schools, and they to set up for next steps. So maybe you do a field trip to your adult service providing agency or to their job coaching program, and so your students can see exactly what they can offer in the future. So it's a great resource to have, very much so. Community organizations matter too. So things like food pantries, public libraries, YMCA's, park districts, etc. These are all resources that your student is going to use for the rest of their life. So it's important to know that they're there, and they not only do they provide services, they also can provide opportunity. So if you have a student like Jordan who wants to work with animals but is hitting some barriers applying for jobs working with animals, if he volunteers at his local animal shelter 3 or 4 days a week, he's learning experience. So then he adds that to the resume, and an employer might look at him as a potential employee differently because he's had experience. So it's important to not rule these things out. I work with a local high school, and they do a round community volunteering throughout the year. They volunteer at different places all year long so that students get that work experience. So I've had several students that have worked at food pantries that now work at Kroger or Walmart because they've gain that experience in a retail environment. I've had them work for the Salvation Army that now work for Kohl's because, again, they've gained experience in the retail environment. So it always looks great on a resume. It sets a student up. They're trained. They're ready to go. We do have lots of presentations on customizing cars of employment if you're interested in those. But these are great opportunities for our students, not only to learn skills, but also socialize within their community. They make friends at those volunteer opportunities. But we want to make sure that they're not only giving back to their community, so they're providing their community joy, but they're enjoying that experience as well. This will help them figure that out. If they don't like working in a food pantry, we know they probably would not like working at Walmart doing the same thing, right? Or if Jordan works at this animal shelter and says, okay, I didn't know if I worked with animals, that meant I had to clean up poop, then we know that's not the future job for Jordan, right? So we learn lots of different things from these community partners. Now, there's other things, and I did put some searches in there that you guys can use, but things like LIHEAP or community action agencies, that's going to help Jordan long term, and maybe even his family right now, because Jordan's going to might struggle to pay bills, pay electricity bills, or provide weatherization for his home. So these are great community organizations to link Jordan with. So just keep that in mind. Don't rule them out. Like, especially those public library programs, man, like my daughter, when she graduated high school, she was very socially isolated. Even though she went to work, she didn't have a lot of friends at work, and she missed her high school friends. So we started to follow the local library page and what they were offering for activities. So now she meets with her friends from school once or twice a month and does things at the local library. They did like a donut decorating class that was super fun, or a painting class, or they get together and do a like a book club type thing. So there's lots of things within your community that of individuals that don't have disabilities would be like, oh yeah, I like to paint. Maybe I'll go sign up for that. Again, it's hard for our individuals to make those decisions. They may be hit with all those barriers to like transportation and things. So if they know they're out there, there's a way to make that happen. So definitely don't be afraid to check out what your community has to offer. Many towns have Facebook pages or websites you can look into. Doesn't ever hurt to get on those community social media pages and say, hey, I really like to do painting. Anybody else do painting or know somewhere I can go painting? So those things can be available within your community. Right. So some additional resources to consider. as an educator, as a professional, I'm sure you're asked a lot of questions about guardianship, right? So I am not a guardianship or an alternative to guardianship expert, but IGAC is. So the Illinois Guardianship and Advocacy Commission can help you understand those guardianships and guardianship alternatives. So guardianship is, and alternatives to guardianship is a family decision, okay? Everyone is individual and different when your student is approaching the age of 18. So I like to start around age 16. We need to explain to them that they are going to be an adult soon, and they need to sign paperwork for themselves or have mom or dad sign a delegation of rights. So the guardianships and alternatives to guardianships are hard to navigate for parents. There is resources out there to help them understand those things. But I get so many parents that call me at age 17 and I have to file for guardianship now, or my everything, my whole world's going to fall apart. And we're able to share resources with them, and they understand the process a little differently. It's more individual based. I can't say enough about Think College. I love, 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 love Think College. So Think College is a great resource out there for our college-bound students. Please do not put college-bound students in one box or think that you can't let certain kiddos in that box, because college is different for everybody, okay? Everybody's different in college, and many colleges have inclusion supports already there for students with disabilities. Think College helps you connect to those. So on Think College, let me see if it'll open if I share it correctly. Everybody see Think College? Can you give me a thumbs up in the chat if you can see it? Tiffany, can you see the Think College page? Did I share the screen correctly?
No, I don't.
Okay, let me reshare that. I was afraid that wouldn't happen. I only want to share it because I love Think College. Okay, now can you guys see Think College?
Yes.
All right, so this is Think College. I love Think College. So Think College is a support for any individual who's going to college but is going to need a customized experience, because picking the right college is super hard, right? I went through 4 before I finally got my degree. So it's here. So Think College has this great resource. We're going to go up here to student and families and click on this college search right here. So college search is going to bring up every college in the United States, and it's divided out by state. So let's say my kiddo wants to go to college in Illinois. I can click on Illinois, and all of these colleges pop up, and they have programs and things in place already to support individuals with disabilities, large arrays of disabilities, okay? So if I've got a student that wants to study music, wants to go to college in the state of Illinois, but is going to need certain supports while they're in college, I can use this site to find what college might support him best. So then he can also do a college visit day. His whole family could. And you can see here that this program, they also have links here, like how is this funded? Like, do they take financial aid? Is this more home-based and community-based waiver service funded? So Think College is a great, great resource. You can see they're all over the state. I visit Carlinville at Blackburn frequently. I love their program there. So they're all over. So this is a great resource for us as professionals when we're talking to our students about what do you want to do next? Do you want to continue to go to school? And what does school look like for you? So again, they're all over this in different states. You can click on to find what college you think would support your student best. But there's a large things out there. So this is a great resource. If you haven't seen Think College before, Tiffany, by the way, thank you for adding this for my presentation today. I'd have mentioned it without anything to show. So it's just a great resource to have. So last year at our Transition Summit, we had a presentation from Think College. So we were very fortunate as far as that goes. Okay, another one is Social Security benefits. So not every student that you serve is going to qualify for SSI. Many students are going to depend on that as a source of income after high school. That doesn't mean they can't work and get SSI. It doesn't mean that that's going to take away from mom and dad's SSI if they get it. All these things are not things that you can answer as an educator or a professional. These are things that the Social Security Administration is going to answer for you, or is going to talk to your student about. So don't be afraid to share this as a linkage, as a reference for your students. Medicaid, of course, they have to qualify for Medicaid to get DD waiver programming. So if they're going to go to those adult service agencies or going to maybe live in a SILA or a group home, they have to be eligible for Medicaid. And again, they have to apply to become eligible. What the trick is, many times students have applied sometime in their lifetime, but were ineligible based on mom and dad's income. Once they become an adult, a certain age, I believe it's 19, Tiffany, correct me if I'm wrong, they no longer then have to carry over mom and dad's income for that. So it's always a resource to share and make sure if parents say, well, we tried and it didn't work, that they can always try again. The IDD Navigator even has an app now. I'm so jealous of their app, but that is a great free public service directory of different provider agencies, different resources for families that are seeking services, and then they're in the IDD or intellectual or developmental disability category. So it's a great resource for educators to link parents to. So I had planned on us to do this great big community mapping activity together, but we don't have time because I talk too much. So I want you to really think right now, what is the biggest barrier for our students when they're navigating future goals? Maybe they want to live on their own. Maybe they want to work someplace. Maybe they want to go to school someplace. What is that biggest barrier? Can you guys give me some suggestions in the chat of what some of those biggest barriers are? Yes, Abby, but open up the chat like you did. Yeah, sorry, I forgot to open the chat. Transportation, absolutely. Big one, transportation, right? Job coaching, I agree with that completely. Completely agree with job coaching. And not being sure of what they wish to do. Thank you for sharing that one. Yes, not toilet train. That is a big barrier, and I hate that that's such a barrier in transportation. Okay, so I'm going to focus on two of them. One of them is not knowing what they want to do, and the other one is transportation. Okay, let's start with not knowing what they want to do. Lots of people, lots of teenagers don't know what they want to do. They take jobs based on their friend works there, or they take jobs based on other peers work there, and they start it out and they like it or they don't like it. Or same way with college, they go there because their friends go there or their mom or dad went there, don't have a clue what they want to do. I'm a person that failed their first semester of college because I was going to school for what I thought I wanted to do, but I really didn't want to do it after I started it, right? That's pretty typical. That's a dignity of risk thing. So let's give our students these opportunities just a little bit early and help them understand the consequences. So integrate into your program different ways to job shadow, different ways to go try different types of jobs. Really listen to what their interest is. So I love to do this. I will have students that I say, what's something that you want to do when you grow up? Or I hate that phrase. What's something you want to do when you leave high school? And I usually get, I want to be a YouTuber, right? Or I want to be an influencer. And I listen to this. I don't ever tell a student something's not reachable. I pick apart the why. Why do you want to be an influencer? Why do you want to be a YouTuber? Well, because all my friends want to do it and it's cool and these people are cool doing it and they make lots of money. Valid, right? So then I start to explain to them what it would take to be a YouTuber or influencer. You know, like Michaela that does all the makeup stuff on TikTok. I love to watch her. She's like a third of my age, but I love to watch her stuff. She went to school for broadcasting. What? Yeah, she went to college for broadcasting and they're kind of blown away. They think this just naturally happens on TikTok, right? So I show them different things like your school offers these classes for broadcasting, or maybe you can become part of the drama club. And then they learn through lived experience whether they're going to like that or not. Okay, so that's one way of how to do that. So getting out in the community, job shadowing, really seeing what different jobs are. Or like I gave the example before, volunteering at different agencies to gain some of that experience. So if they go to a job, they are going to know if I like or don't like this. So that's a good way to try those things. Those assessments, really doing assessments with our students, picking apart what exactly they want. There's so many great tools through Charting the Life course where you can help a student to figure out what exactly it is they want their good life to look like. Those are different presentations. I promised Tiffany I would not get on a huge Charting the Life course rant today, but I did, of course, mention one right here in the references. But okay, so the next one's transportation. So depending on where you live at, transportation is hard to get all over the state of Illinois. Even though we have extra tax dollars at the pump that go towards transportation, it's still hard to obtain, right? So for us, we live very rurally. Okay, we do not have Uber or Lyft in our community. There is a county transportation service that my daughter has to call and get a ride from when she wants to go someplace like work or out in the community. And that was hard enough for her to learn how to do that and navigate that, right? She has to pay for it. So it's $3 a ride, pretty cheap, really, with the price of gas, but she does have to pay for it. Again, that was hard to find and navigate. So you can integrate things into their high school experience, like even if your student's not going to drive, a form of driver's ed, how to obtain transportation in your community, how to schedule rides with the busing company, learn to use the Uber or Lyft app, right? So integrate that as part of your driver's ed, okay, for your student. What do these signs look like? If you're biking, if you're walking, what do these look like? What are these geo trackers? Like, is this something that would help me if I wore an Angel Sense device when I walked to Casey's? Would mom feel more comfortable with me trying this? So definitely integrate the transportation into one of your independent living goals, of course, and more of like think about it like a driver's ed type thing at school. So those are some great ones. The toilet training one is so frustrating to me. It's so frustrating because, this is something I get the impression as a parent, a lot of people feel like is a choice that my child is not toilet trained. And because it's a choice, he doesn't qualify for these, and these things. I always push back on that. And I push back hard, like, can we integrate a toilet training into his, the state of Illinois calls their version of an IEP when they go to adult services discovery tool. Can we work on that as a goal so that then that would open him up to other things? What are some alternative things he can do? He can't just sit all day, because if he sits all day, he's going to get bored and then he's going to get in trouble, right? So I really push back on that, why exactly he can't do these things because he's not toilet trained. I've gotten pretty far, okay? And I'm not saying it's conquered everything, but I've gotten farther than I thought I would. So it's always a thing that says, okay, if you're saying this is a barrier, let's put a goal in place. So okay, so what organizations, Tiffany, I'd love for you to weigh in on this. What do you feel like is the most underutilized community agency out there?
Didn't realize I was muted.
Right.
I would say NAMI.
Absolutely. I would
I would
agree.
say, I mean, well, there's many, but NAMI.
Mhm.
I definitely, have seen around this age, that age, 14 and a half to 22, that more mental health
Mhm.
supports are needed. And I definitely feel like NAMI has a lot of good resources. And I have seen different, they do have NAMI Illinois, and they
Mhm.
do have some specific for counties. So they have a lot of trainings, a lot of, they even have even places that you can actually go to in person. They have events all the time. I know they're having a big conference in believe it's Lyle or something,
Mhm.
Illinois, in I believe in the fall. So they have mental health first aid training just to be
Mhm.
able to teach professionals and families about
Mhm.
how to support somebody who is having mental health challenges. So that's that pops up off the top of my head. Other
Yes,
than other
absolutely.
than the ISC, a lot of people
Yes.
don't know that that's the gateway to services. But
Mhm.
yes, that NAMI is the first thing that came to mind.
Absolutely. And Tiffany she added some things to my slides for me. She was so great to do. I love having a partner to kind of proofread my stuff, but NAMI is such an underrated resource. A lot of people don't know about it. They offer such great curriculum out there. So if you're an educator watching this, thinking about how I can integrate more social skills or something into my lesson plans, NAMI is a great resource for that. They really are. And so many of our students struggle with mental health and in all over everywhere. I really think that NAMI is a great resource to help our students with that.
And I'm going to actually somebody asked about it. I'm going to put a link to it in the chat so
Hmm.
people can access it as well.
Perfect. Which partner organizations, I'm going to ask the audience this, do you regularly see at a transition meeting? Which ones are the ones you see there the most? And we talked about this a little bit at the beginning. I asked you what some of the more popular ones are, but what do you regularly see at those meetings? DRS. Okay, absolutely. Okay, none. I hear that a lot too. Okay, none. All right. So a lot of the struggle with that is, first of all, some of these agencies need a case opened before they can initiate, you know what I mean, services. So coming to something as personal as an IEP meeting for special education district coordinators not at your IEP meeting. Oh, I'm not going to touch that one. I'm not getting myself in trouble with that one. Okay. Because of that, some of them, you know, they do have, and I will say, like my son's ISC, I talked to her last week about something else, and she has so many individuals on her caseload. I have no idea how she manages to do what she does. So I'm sure it is hard to fit in a an IEP meeting. I get it completely. Same way for DRS or different adult service agencies. It's hard, and some of them don't know a lot about education, right? They're there for next steps. So when they're invited to an IEP meeting, they're thinking, how can I help with that? Like I can't prioritize that with something else. So just keep pushing, definitely. And once you share the information with the families, they can push too. So like I said with DRS, you know, I have families that call and they'll say, well, we can't help you till your kid graduates. But when they call back the second time and say, no, I'm looking for pre-employment program. Oh, okay, I'll get you over where you need to go. So sometimes it's about asking the right questions. We are, as a center, working on a pretty good transition roadmap. When exactly to ask what for, like what type of year should I be engaging in this? So I'm excited for that to get to come out. And show educators and parents exactly who I should be contacting and what year I should be doing that within my transition years, and you know, forming that relationship. Again, form those relationships. If you have an adult service provider that you think is going to serve quite a few of your students someday, reach out and get a good relationship with them, so that when a parent calls, they know exactly who to ask for and they can explain how to help provide services for their student. Okay. So some barriers of, like I just said, families are already overwhelmed by so many systems. Okay. Agencies are working in silos. So they're used to working with this and they're not used to working till this age, or they're not used to working with a person until they get funded instead of preparing for. So when that happens, it's kind of hard for, you know, those agencies to communicate back. There's a lack of communication. The transportation barrier, man, I think when I retire, I'm going to start a form of Uber that only serves people with disabilities. I really think I'm going to do that. I stole that idea from our executive director because that's what she wants to do too. But it would be such a great service, right? To have an app that our individuals can use that takes their funding to pay for things and understands that. Like my biggest one is like if my daughter's not out at the bus stop exactly when it pulls up, they just go and they don't take into account that it might take her longer to put her shoes on, or it might take her, she might forget about it until the last minute. Like they expect her to learn from consequence like everybody else does. If you're not at the bus stop, you don't get on the bus, but with her, she learns consequence differences. There are so many limited services in rural communities, and the state of Illinois is a large rural state. Okay, yes, we have the giant Chicago up there. There's lots of population up there, but there's the rest of the state too, and a lot of us are limited on options for services and services. And there are wait lists. There are a long, long, long wait list for families. Transition planning often fails because agencies wait for another system to act first. Okay. So that's a lot of times why our kids either fall off the cliff or get stuck in the middle, and they don't quite execute their plans. So better collaboration, invite agencies early. Okay, so if you're having a back to school night, maybe it's a great idea to invite DRS to put up a table. Or if you're doing a college day, invite DRS to the table, invite the service coordination there so that when students are walking around at those college days, they can learn more information from those agencies. Use consent forms proactively. So it never hurts when you sit down and have a planning meeting with mom to say, you know, I'd like to invite DRS at our next IEP meeting, and this is what services they could potentially, you don't ever promise services, provide to Jordan. Could you sign this consent so I can talk with them? Create a community resource list for your students. conduct student-centered planning. We're going to do a presentation on that really soon. Use warm handoffs between agencies. Okay, so just don't say, here's the number, call, follow up with that parent. Did you get a hold of DRS today? Again, warm, you're not guaranteeing them for services. You're not, and again, parents are overwhelmed in all this process. It's hard to navigate everything. They're very worried about what happens next, whole different stage of life, right? And I build those local partnerships before a crisis occurs. Okay, so build those connections. So let's talk a little bit more about Jordan here, okay? We haven't seen Jordan for a while. If you notice, Jordan is standing in what I think it's calling it Happy Pets pet shop. He is wearing a Parkland College sweatshirt, and he's holding a snake with a dog. Like, he seems be smiling, like he seems pretty happy. But what we started with Jordan with first was we connected him to the Department of Rehabilitation Services for career exploration. So they helped Jordan understand exactly what jobs are in his community that he could do to work with pets. So he he went to the library, found out about a volunteer opportunity at an animal shelter, and he built some work skills. He also joined the local YMCA to improve his social engagement and used his supports there. His school aligned his goals with his real life interests. So school started to see Jordan's a lot happier kid when he goes to YMCA and has group. He's a lot happier kid now that he's working at the animal shelter. His ISC agency came to the IEP table and explained different supports that Jordan would someday be eligible for when he's pulled from the list. And the family got a little bit more comfortable with outcomes. Okay. So because of this, Jordan was able to create a full circle with his transition plan. So those interagency collaborations really transformed his plan, and it made Jordan happier. It made the team happier. It made mom and dad happier. So everybody had better outcomes for Jordan. Now, again, this is not just up to one person on the IEP team. This takes all of us working together. It takes your principal helping build that relationship with you, with your adult service provider. It takes someone on your school board saying, hey, let's apply for this grant. Okay, this is all working together to do. And it's not easy. And it's a little bit more work to get started with, but it's going to be a systematic change for the better in your school when you build these interagencies communication. Now let's talk about family-friendly communication. So families often hear acronyms that are really hard for them to understand, or abbreviations. My husband often says, stop speaking in IEP to me, like it's too much, knock it off. So try to avoid acronyms when at all possible. Eligibility language as well is hard for them sometimes, and compliance terminology. So keep that in mind. So use plain language, explain adult systems early and if you don't know the answer, it is absolutely okay to say, I'm going to call somebody else to help explain this to us. That's what Family Matters is here for. That's what the Arc of Illinois is here for. You don't have to know everything. We just need to be able to get the answer to those families when they ask. Provide written resources when you can, and normalize fear and uncertainty. This is a scary time. It's a scary time. Yes, it's a beautiful time when your kid finishes this giant milestone, but the unknown in the future is hard, right? And please don't use phrases with your parents like, one day you're going to be gone and somebody else is going to have to do this. That just makes the fear worse. Like, as a parent, when I hear that, yes, it's true. One day I will not be here and somebody else is going to have to step in. But I don't want to think about that right now. It sends an urgency of panic through me, right? So let's use phrases that normalize that fear. Okay. There is a path of uncertainty that we're going to help to build this bridge with. Your student's voice matters. Okay, student-led IEPs are crucial. We do presentations on them a lot using the Charting the Life course framework and principles and tools. So try to use those preference assessments, encourage self-advocacy and choice making, and don't forget dignity of risk. Okay, so in Jordan's case, Jordan wanted to take that vet tech class in high school that we all knew was really hard to take. Like, it's a hard class, but he really wanted to take that because that's what he wanted to his future. Maybe we were scared to let him take it. Maybe we were scared that he might fail, but guess what? We gave him the opportunity and he learned something from that opportunity. Okay. And now he has a job working at Pet Friendly Pet Shop, and he's going to Parkland Community College to do something in the animal science world. I'm not sure what Jordan's going to do, but he's got the dignity of rest to try it. Transition planning should reflect the student's life, not just available programs. Okay, so that's the big thing there. It's all about their life, just not what they're going to be eligible for in the future. All right, so does Jordan look a little happier now? Right? Our transition plan helped build that bridge with community partners that he can now walk across safely to that eligibility system. So that's what your transition plan is doing for Jordan. That is the life changing you are making. Like, you went into this field, you went into this age group for a reason. Okay. I studied this in college for a reason. I love this area of education. And so is Tiffany. She loves this transition thing because we get to see the end result. We get to see our students blossom and be happy when they take the next steps. So you are making lifelong changes for Jordan. I attended a visitation today in my community for a friend of mine, and as I'm standing in line, I hear the most familiar voice, and I turn around, and there is my health occupation teacher. Okay, so in high school, I insisted to take the health occupation class. I was going to be an EMT like the rest of my family. I was going to rock it. I was going to do it. And I took this class, and I did not test high enough to get in this class. But this lady, who is now much older, took a chance on me. She did. She said, let her do it. Let her do it and give her a chance. We're going to help her. I failed the class, guys. I failed the class miserably. It was horrible. But you know what I learned? That was not the path for me. Okay. That's what I learned. Somebody gave me that chance. Somebody gave me that dignity of risk, and I tried. And I wasn't successful, but how much of our young adult and even adult life is trying and failing? We learn as much from failing as we do from success. In fact, some people say you learn more from failing. So your job that you're doing right now is building this amazing bridge for Jordan and for your students to cross. So because we're able to know more about agencies within our community and agencies that are statewide and federal programs, we help build this bridge for Jordan. Okay. Some key takeaways. Transition planning requires that collaboration. Adult outcomes improve when early interagency involvement starts earlier on. Families need guidance. It's a very complex system to navigate. Students need to remain at the center of everything and not, oh, he'll get funding for this. We need to think about what he wants. Okay. Address the want first, and then we'll get to the how. And community organizations are valuable transition partners. So don't be afraid to reach out to your local churches or, all the things in your community to see how they can support your student and what they can offer. I'm going to ask you right now to please use your phone to grab our QR code and take our survey about today's presentation. This just takes a few minutes. Like I mentioned before, we are a federally funded program, so we do have to get your feedback to continue to receive funding. We want to know that we're doing a good job too. So I want you to be honest. If you didn't feel my presentation was helpful, if you feel like I should have shared more information, I want to hear this from you, okay? Most importantly, I want to build that bridge as a community agency for you. Okay, so I want you to be able to pick up the phone and say, hey, Abby Mars, hey, Tiffany, I've got this kiddo that really, really wants to work here, but I don't know how to get to those next steps. We will help you navigate this process. That's what Tiffany and I do. We will help to connect you with other agencies. We will help you create student-centered plans for your student. We want to help in this area. We know that ISB is requiring a lot of you as professional right now. They want your transition plans to be robust, and they want the execution to be great. They want, when they make those indicator 13 calls, that they hear nothing but success stories. But there's some lack of resources there for you too, right? We want to help to bridge that for you. So please, please, please reach out and let us know how we can help you if you have those situations. Okay, if you've taken your survey, I'm now going to share our next presentation is going to take place on June 25th, and we're going to talk about building social networks to improve post-secondary outcomes. So social networks are very important for our students to be successful, and we need to start to build those now, not after they leave. So we're going to talk about that next time. That's going to be in late June. Tiffany and I will be here again to navigate that process with you. All right, so now it's time for PD credits. I'm going to share the link in the chat. And I will paste it there. So this is for your professional development credit through the Illinois State Board of Education, I believe, or through through the Illinois Elevating Special Education Project. So they will provide your PD credit. You do have to fill out this form. I will email this form out to you as well. So yes, I do Charting the Life course as well. So so I'm getting overwhelmed in the chat because I knew I was going to do that. So I'm going to stop the recording now, and Tiffany and I will take all the time needed to answer your questions.